How I got here. I am very concerned about the environment. I ran for the Green Party about 5 years ago. And during that campaign, I came here and spoke, and I went, wow, this exists? This is the most interesting place that I've ever seen, and it's like 10 minutes from my home. Where I was living was changing. I had my own house, but I wasn't living in it. I was renting it, so I was living somewhere else, and just having a life adventure. And I thought, well, why don't I come here and see what this kind of life is? And I really didn't know what I was getting into. I thought, well, yeah, it looks like paradise. All these people live together. They seem pretty cool and interesting. And they have something in common with me, and that's the environment, and they care about their footprint. So I went through the membership process and was accepted and moved in. And I never knew what I was getting into, but that's how I got that year. And it's probably way better and way worse than I ever imagined.
Coming here was an adventure in really exploring what I want for my life in this third chapter of my life. I knew I wanted to live in the country. I knew I wanted to grow food and be part of a community. Living in the city, it's hard to be a part of a lot of community. You can have your neighbors, but you don't necessarily really know them. And I looked around, I looked across Canada, and there's quite a number of communities around. But I also did want to stay close to my family. So, I'm only an hour away, and so I have the opportunity to head back into town whenever I need to. But coming here, as soon as I pulled down the driveway and saw the beauty of this land up here in Caledon, I fell in love with it. We're on 191 acres of mixed use, and my passion here is inside of growing food and seeing how we can take care of a small community of people for food in the most efficient way that gives more back to the land than we take, so that we can practice stewardship of our planet, Mother Earth, in the most responsible, generous way possible. I love it here. I want to be part of a project that is helping heal the planet and experimenting, finding ways as community for people to be able to live together in a very localized environment, economically, agriculturally, transportation-wise, so that we're not going external, we're not going out far to have our needs met. And living in an intentional community provides us with this great opportunity to live with a much smaller footprint. We have 11 units in this building, and just by virtue of sharing one building with minimal outside walls, our heat usage is lower than it was in my house. We share quite a lot of things. I gave up my car and share a car, so that use is down considerably. And find I need a lot less than I ever thought that I would need to live with when I lived in the city.
I moved to Whole Village at the end of 2020. I had been considering for a while that I wanted to live in community and learn more about living off the land and growing my own food, and I was very interested in plant medicine, so just wanting to be more in touch with nature. I thought it was something I had to build from scratch, though, that I had to build myself, and had no idea how. I was living in Toronto at the time, and when the pandemic hit, just kind of found myself being pushed out of the city, and I discovered Whole Village. I didn't know that it was in existence, and everything kind of wrote itself from there. I did the orientation, I entered into the immersion process. I came with my daughter and stayed for 2 weeks in the summer, and the rest is kind of history. We just continued to take one step after another until we lived here.
Oh, well, it's pretty simple. I mean, I had a whole section of my life left to live, and I wanted to use it sustainably. I wanted to use it to produce something I could leave behind that was more meaningful than what, you know, than just sitting reading books every day or doing whatever, playing golf. And I love gardening, and I love people, and I thought, gee, this, you put the two together and you sort of got an eco-village. And I found out it was a way to live in community and share your resources and grow your own food and plant a lot of trees. And I thought, that's for me. I think I can feel satisfied with the last piece of my life operating in that form. So I studied eco-villages. I visited a couple, and I joined a group that was forming, that had formed but hadn't found land yet, or just had found land. And everything that was told to me at the orientation I attended was exactly what I had been studying, thinking, and wanting in my life. And I signed up and never looked back.
I hadn't seen anything like this before in my life. So a group of people living together intentionally. There are 11 suites in this building I live in, plus there's a farmhouse. And so we have 24 people here, I think, right now. We range in age from, I think right now, 6 to 86. So it's really interesting. Intentional community means we intentionally have decided to live together as a group, not separately in our own houses. Eco is it's an eco village. We really try and live with a smaller footprint, and we have a long way to go. It's smaller maybe than the average North American, but there's so much more we could do. And we're working at that, but some things are harder. So we're tackling them a little bit over time. And it's also a farm, and so we really practice regenerative agriculture. We're trying to do what we can to farm soil, to do what's right, to grow great vegetables. We also have some cows. We have meat eaters and vegans and vegetarians and everything else. And so, our cows are definitely improving the pasture land, and that's part of the deal.
I've described this to my friends and family as an experiment in humanity. That this is a group of people committed to something bigger than themselves, an eco-farming village that has people working together for something larger than their own personal egoic needs and wants, that allows us to grow exponentially from the community point of view as an intentional community. And as an eco-village, we are working to create a model of agriculture that is resilient, that's just, that honors the planet and all the elements in the whole ecosystem that we are part of. And it is an experiment. I mean, none of us know everything. None of us are experts in things. It is an experiment, and with lots of successes and lots of mishaps, and 20 years in, this place just keeps going.
And the happiest people have purpose. It's not, you can't buy happiness. I have a really interesting life. I'm very happy, and I'm busy, and I have lots of downtime too. I like to read, I watch Netflix. I live a pretty normal lifestyle, except that I do a lot, and I work. I do have an off-property job, and I always will, I guess, because I need to make a living, and I don't have a pension, so I work for a living, but this is my purpose. My job is just how I pay for my lifestyle. It can be fun, but really, this is my purpose: is this community, and it's not all about the regenerative farming. It's also about living in community. Community itself is a really fulfilling way to live. It's hard work. We really work at it. But the amount of self-growth that I've gone through, I've been here 4.5 years. I never thought at this time in my life I would be learning so much about interpersonal skills and how to create that good communication between people that makes a community thrive. And yeah, that's part of what it is to be here, is community, not just the eco side of it.
From a cultural point of view inside and a social point of view, living in an intentional community it's extremely different from what most of us are used to. And coming to a community whose decision making is based in a consensus model is an adjustment for everybody, and it's a difficult one for some people. We spend a fair bit of time discussing anything that has to happen. So when 20 people working together to run the farm, the house, the community, requires a lot of conversations. And for people who are not used to having to work with people, that can be super challenging, because you want it done your way, you know your way's the right way, and the time it takes to have multiple conversations can frustrate a lot of people. But at the end of the day, it's a phenomenally more positive approach to decision making. Having had those conversations at the front end of a decision, you have buy-in from people all the way through the process. Well, it may seem like it's taking a lot longer to come to a decision. The execution of it can be faster because you already have buy-in. You're not convincing people.
It's been a lot to learn. It's been a lot to learn in more areas than I expected. I knew I had a lot to learn about living on the land, but there's also so much to learn about animals and about building and about interpersonal skills and what it takes to live with a large group of people, and learn to work together and adjust for everybody's different perspectives, and learn how to make decisions together.
It's almost like a big family that aren't necessarily related, living together, sharing resources and housing and so on, and trying to develop a farm in a sustainable, organic, I usually tell them it's organic, in an organic way, and helping young people learn to farm as well.
Being here with my daughter has been really beautiful. I think it's a really incredible place for kids. Not only is there a multi-generational component for them to interact with, but there is this degree of freedom here that she has, where I can say, yeah, go outside and play, bring your walkie-talkie. It's not like being on the streets of Toronto where I have to hold her a bit closer. She's really grown a lot in independence here, and we've been really lucky that there have been other kids here for her to interact with, especially during the pandemic when everyone's kind of stuck at home. As an only child, there's been other kids, and she essentially has siblings now, other kids that she lives with. So that's been really beautiful for her. But it is also, living in an eco-village, you are a bit more isolated. You spend a lot of the time at home. So when there aren't other kids here, and some kids have moved on or maybe reduced the amount of time that they spend here with another parent, it's really noticeable when there aren't other kids to share the space with.
We're working to avoid the, I guess I could call it traditional approach, where you're trying to convince people or force an outcome, get people on your side. Most of us come from a more competitive background, whether it's in business or at school. And here it's a softer approach. We are learning to listen to everybody and listen to everyone's concerns. One of the most beautiful parts of this for me, and the more difficult, is when people behave in ways where they're frustrated or they're stressed. It can be problematic. You know, people are angry, they get into a stress response, so they'll fight, flight, freeze, shut, and how that looks for different people is individual, the way it shows up. Living here has given me the opportunity more than at any time in my life to see that behavior, but also, instead of just reacting to it and going, get away from me, I don't want to talk to you. No, I don't have to put up with this. I don't like the way you're talking to me or offending me, any of what I would normally react, the ways I would react. But being here and knowing everyone's commitment to this place and to community, it gives me the capacity to see past the behavior and get that behavior is coming from a place of a big commitment or a pain. And to be able to be present with how they're speaking, to understand that it's frustration or upset or disappointment, and not react to them, but be able to respond. And that skill set, although albeit for some people is very challenging, has expanded my heart and allows me to see in everybody what people's primary commitment is, what's really important to them, and have conversations that can make a difference for people so that they feel safe to be able to communicate their ideas and their concerns and create a safe space for people to be. And that's been a wonderful experience.
Much of it has gone as I imagined or as I was told at the orientation. And then I've learned a lot since then and tried to implement some of my learnings. But the thing that I'm saddest about is that we haven't been able to attract more long-term members and more long-term farm members. I saw myself hoping to attract and work with a farm family that would be able to make a living from the farm and be part of the community. I'm still shooting for that, but it hasn't really happened yet. That's about it. Everything else has been more than I expected. I mean, there have been moments when I've been upset and disappointed and in conflict, but I think I knew that was probably going to happen. I mean, if we've lived a long life, we've been ups and downs, had ups and downs, and understand that that's part of living. So yeah, it's been better than I expected, actually, except for that one element. Really, I feel some kind of it's a deficit to our plan, that we haven't been able to manage to keep somebody here that could make a living, a true living, with the support of some of the other members, or maybe even 3 or 4 families, or 5 or 6 little enterprises.
This eco-village is the perfect place for people who have a very deep commitment or drive to make the world a better place, and who have the capacity and the willingness to put in the time and the energy to the projects that are going on here. Whether it's the farming part or the energy, creating more energy independence, taking care of trees, or the animals. After being here through the trial period of the residential trial period for a year, by the end of that, people know if there's a calling for them to invest themselves into an area that will further this project and make it better. And for people who have that drive and the capacity to live with other people, work with other people, and work in this consensus model, this is a great place to live.
Well, I'd like to attract somebody that can carry this place forward, make a living on it, maybe more than one family. I'd like more people to join as members that are supportive of that, and supportive of filling in some of the blanks here that we haven't quite developed yet. There's lots we can still do here. But I really hope we can attract people who are very serious and committed and passionate about making this eco-village as sustainable as possible and as fair and socially just as possible, and kind of a model maybe someday. I don't think we're there yet, but I'd like to see others start that would do the same kind of thing. I would hope that we could help them.
We're having our 20th anniversary next summer. So this place has really been here for quite a while. One of the parts of our vision is that we are a model, and we want to model a way of life that's lower footprint and regenerative agriculture. But what I see for the future is, as we're dealing with climate change, and it's very real now, that I think and hope the governments want to be looking at a different way of lifestyle that they might support. And so possibly incubating other projects like this, influencing zoning, influencing planning so that houses like this can be built in the city or in the country, and just making this more of a way to live. And I have to say, it's probably also a better way to live as far as finding happiness. So it's not going back, it's actually going forward.